We have some new rules. From now on, it's called the Omar rule. So the first night of Hyperdrive was pretty insane. So we get there and they tell us, hey, we're only filming at night. So we'd get there around 2, 3 in the afternoon to do practice runs. And at this point, I haven't really driven this Mercedes. This past month has been pretty crazy. I wrecked my Viper. I had one of my rallies that we were doing. So I was not really prepared to be just driving this car I've never driven. So as I'm kind of getting used to even how this car handles, they're like, hey, come on over to this course. We have these practice courses set up, which are pretty much mock-ups of what the obstacles are. So instead of putting us out there and hitting a big metal container or a wall, they actually had these like cones set up, and they said, this is a wall here. These are an obstacle that you have to hit with the back of your car. So at the time, I never once tried to hit anything with my car. You try to avoid things. So I'm going into cones and I'm just spinning around and hitting cone after cone after cone. And, the stunt drivers there that were teaching everyone, how to run the course is telling us like, hey, don't hit those cones, just spin around them, let your back of your car nearly touch them and come around and hit them one in the center. I can't do that, but I'm trying. So I'm just spinning and just going in circles, and I'm literally smoking tires so quickly that after one practice run, my rear tires were completely gone. I get a flat tire and I'm looking, I'm like, how do I have a flat tire? And I look and I can just see the metal cords of the tires, because as you're just spinning it and the way the camber is in that car, it just wasn't good. So I go get new tires, come back, and the guy's like, hey, he's like, try not to keep spinning like that. You want to slide, not spin in circles. You're just smoking your tires that way. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And he's trying to teach me. And at this point, I'm like, all right. And I could feel something wrong with my car because I'm holding that steering wheel all the way over. And I'm hearing this whining sound. And I've heard what power steering pumps sound like and how they make whines and stuff. So I'm like, all right, it's not the end of the world. But that's when I lost all power steering in that car. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So that's the moment where I had to kind of put the car away, and that's my first night there. And they were like, we're going to film tomorrow, and you are the first player on the episode. So this car needs to be ready. I'm like, that's not going to happen. And I had to explain to the producers, that I blew the power steering pump on my first practice day and that I couldn't do anything. So everybody else is practicing, and these guys don't really need to practice. They're pretty good already. I mean, they're going around to spin, so everybody kind of had their 1 minute, go out there, you hit a couple cones, you come back out. And they would just hit the target every time. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how am I not able to do that? And I didn't realize that, the way that their wheels are set up, they could actually turn their tires and they're pretty much facing a 90-degree angle, and they tap their drift brake and their back end just kicks out. So they have so much more control. So they're telling me like, hey, it's easy. And I'm like, okay. So I parked the car and I'm just watching them practice now. So now I'm in this situation where I didn't know how that car already drove because I haven't had it that long, and it's been being built for the past few weeks. Now I'm only watching people drive their cars. So it's even making me more anxious because I'm like, these people know how to drive. This is what they do. I just had to sit there and wait for morning to go to Mercedes to hopefully see if they could fix it. And that's when I found out, that we brought it over to Mercedes in Rochester, and the first thing they said to me is, are you guys filming that show up the road? That's the big talk in town, right? Because it's a small town. It's Rochester, New York. I don't think anything big ever came out of there besides Kodak. They're telling us, hey, we'll fix the car for you. So I leave the car there, and I get a call a few hours later from Mercedes, and that's when they told me, they're like, hey, we have a little issue. One of the techs here that actually works for Mercedes corporate happened to be here. He saw your car with the roll cage, the cameras in it, all the stuff. He called Mercedes and sent them pictures to not warranty your car. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? They're like, you have to pay to fix your own car. And at that point, they didn't even have any parts in stock, right? They said it would be 2-3 days. That's when I made the executive decision to call one of my staff members who worked for me back in Chicago. And I said, hey, go take a car, pull the power steering pump out, and fly here and bring it to me. So he flew it out, brought it there. Mercedes installed the part. Within a few hours, they were like, hey, your car's ready to go. I paid whatever it cost to have it fixed. They wouldn't warranty it. I drive right back to the course. So this is day 2. And they're about to film that night. And so I go to the practice course and they're like, hey, your car's back. Everybody's clapping. You're gonna be on episode 1, player 1. I was super excited. So I'm like, all right, let me go practice. Let's see how this works. I go out there, first 360 I do, car shuts off, power steering, everything just goes bad in it. That moment, I realized that the power steering pump wasn't bad. The whole rack was bad. The power steering pump actually exploded into the rack. So I had to tell the producers that night, I'm not ready to film. I can't do anything. What do you want me to do? And they said, we'll push you back to the next episode. So next day, go back to Mercedes, bring the car there, showed them that the car had 10 miles on it from when they touched it, and now it's not working. That's when they told me the power steering rack was bad, and that's when I knew that they weren't going to pay the $7,000 it costs to replace. So they found one in another state, I believe it was California. They overnighted it, and now I'm, again, back in square one, just waiting and waiting to see what's going to happen. And they finally get the car ready. They call me up, they're like, your power steering rack's in. Here's your bill, $7,800. So I'm thinking to myself, can I get Netflix to pay for this? And so I get back to the set, and I'm the only one who actually ever left my car off the set because I had insurance, I had license plates, and I am legally able to drive the car. The other cars there didn't have this stuff. They didn't have license plates on their cars. So I'm driving this race car built up, for a drift course for the largest TV show ever for Netflix. And I'm just driving around and there's stickers on the car. So people are looking at me and they're like, they know that the car doesn't belong there. We were sitting in our RV, right? And we're watching TV because we're kind of living a little large in this RV. We have this beautiful motorhome, and these other people are in tents, like legitimately tent, because the show didn't give you trailers. So they thought we were like, I don't know, celebrities or something. They're like, how do you guys have this giant RV? And so we're like watching TV, and at the time we're watching the news, and they're like, all the neighbors are complaining because they said they couldn't sleep because of the loud noises. So I'm watching myself on TV spinning around while a lady's holding her dog, saying my dog can't sleep at night. And I'm feeling bad because I have dogs, right? I'm like, oh, I feel bad for this lady, but I'm also laughing because she said my poor dog can't sleep at night because of these loud race cars. And then the news channel would show back my car and it would just be spinning. And it's just my Mercedes spinning and spinning. And I'm like, I wasn't the one making all the noise. It was everybody else. Some of these guys don't have any mufflers or they're just straight, the exhaust coming right out of the engine. And so they were a little upset, the whole staff around there, but I still had more mechanical issues with my car. At this point, now the brakes weren't working. So I'm sitting there because the drift brake interfered with all that stuff. So I have this shop over there called the Little Speed Shop, who Netflix hired to pretty much work on our cars. They were 24-hour mechanics that literally lived on set with us. And they're working on the car and they're working on the drift brake. They finally kind of get it to work semi, where they realize that on that Mercedes, if you put the key in, you turn it to the first switch and you hold the traction control button, you go inside the menu and hold like steering wheel. All these buttons put you in this dyno mode. So once the car goes into dyno mode, it turns off all the nannies. But for some reason, every time that would go into nanny mode, or to turn off all the nannies, and it was at full dyno mode, we'd pull that brake, it would drift for about the first 2 pulls. So I'm like, dude, I can drift my car. I'm going to win this competition. So I go out, I hit a couple cones. Everybody's like, yeah, you know what you're doing now. We knew you know how to drive. I'm like, yeah, I do. 3rd pull, I lose all my brakes. Thankfully, we're just in a coned area, so the car just kind of stops over some cones. I go back and I'm telling the producers again, I'm like, my car's broken again. And they're like, if you don't get your car semi-ready to compete, you're not going to be on this TV show. And at this point, I'm like, I've already have all this money invested. I'm already time. I'm there. I'm competing on this show. At this point, I'm thinking about even shipping another car over just to compete. A Little Speed Shop works on it, and they're like, just don't use the drift brake. Finally, episode 4 is where I'm at. And so episode 1, 2, and 3, there was an elimination round, and there wasn't you could get through pretty quickly because only 3 people would go home. Well, on my episode, only 3 people were going through, and the other 9 people that were left all got eliminated. So I just drive my car, not using the drift brake. And as you see, I did something that the TV show was kind of a little in awe of. They kind of, I kind of joked around with one of the stunt drivers. His name's ACP. So he kind of said, hey, use your car to the best of your abilities. Use every inch of it to hit the targets if you have to. And he said, if you even have to use your doors. And he meant when you slide, as opposed to hitting on the rear end of your car, he meant if you slide and your door hits the obstacle, it counts. So I said, okay, I'll use my doors. And I kind of said that to him right before I took off. And he kind of like looked at me like, what does that even mean? And so I come around the obstacles and I'm doing the course. And the first obstacle that you're supposed to use the back of your car to drift, I don't use my brake. I open up my driver's door and just knock down the target, and all the balls go flying, and that's a point. And so I can hear them on the radio because I have my headset in there, and they're like, what are you doing? Don't use your doors. Don't use your doors. So I'm hitting my doors, coming through. I go through the containers, come around, do the speed course, and I'm going pretty quickly because the car is still a fast car. Just because it's not drifting well doesn't mean it's not making good time. So I get through the course, and I used my door on every target I could as opposed to drifting the car. And I was able to still get the points, and I made it in pretty good timing. Unfortunately, I didn't get past that episode because I was going against some professionals, and those guys already made it through episode 1, 2, and 3, so they already knew what they were doing, and they were great at practicing, and they were great drivers as well. So I get to the end, and I park my car, and we have a little team meeting at the end of that, right? Because every night we'd talk, all the staff on the show and the producers and all the people in the competition. They were like, all right, we have some new rules. From now on, it's called the Omar rule. Do not open your doors while you're on the racetrack. You have to stay in your cars, and your door is not allowed open, or you're automatically disqualified. But at that point, I already did it. It was fun, and I made it through the competition by doing that. On my run, it was so easy on my car that besides going fast and open up the door to hit the targets, I purposely made sure that I was going to make it through that whole course. I told them right before I went, I said, I'm getting through that finish line. After everything I went through, being there every day, practicing my car, breaking it, all that time and energy spent, I was going to complete Hyperdrive.
Going somewhere in a hurry, ma'am? Let me explain your options.
Never mind, I got this.
TheTicketClinic.com